Today I want to talk to you about condition on pottery. What's acceptable and what isn't acceptable for a condition, and how do you judge if it's good or not? I think the most important one to talk about will be Maria Martinez pottery, because her pottery is very condition oriented. Those collectors and myself want things that are really in very good condition. So what is good and what's bad and what's acceptable and what's not? Well, when Maria was making pottery in the 20s and 30s, it really wasn't that expensive. You could get a great piece for $1.50. Now granted, $1.50 might get you a meal and even a hotel room, so it wasn't inexpensive, but by today's standards it wasn't a lot. And generally speaking, those pots were often brought home by people who used them in everyday life. Even though they were still expensive when they purchased them, they may do things like put flowers in them, because after all, they were pots, right? Sometimes they would be used to cook with or served salads. And I've seen every form and variation when it comes to condition on Maria pottery. You can see knife marks where somebody has actually used the plate and cut into the plate as a serving dish. Most usually I see things where it shows water damage. Water damage is from the humidity, and generally they put a plant in it or some kind of water, and the slip, which is the outside covering, which is a mineral paint, starts to bubble up, and you can see a little grayish color to it, and you can see fine bubbles. When you see this, and generally it's going to be on the bottom of the pot where the water kind of sat, this is a problem. It is acceptable to have this, but if it's minor, the larger amount of damage or slip wear that we see, or slip irregularities due to water and humidity, then this will affect the price, and it can affect it dramatically, by as much as 2/3, depending on how bad it is. Another way you can look at for water damage is in the inside of the pot, because often when there is humidity or water damage, the calcification of the minerals actually works its way up, and you'll see little rings or whiteness inside. This is another thing to, when you see this is a red flag to say, okay, this may have some problems. One of the problems that we see now is not actually damage, but restoration. Because some of these pots are very, very valuable, you'll have some restorers taking and putting a black paint or slip on it. Now generally you can see this to the naked eye, even in someone who doesn't know pottery. But there are some that are very good, and in this case is why you need an expert. And it's always good to ask whoever you're buying a Maria pot, does it have a restoration? The biggest problem is when you're buying Marias on a site like internet site. If they don't put that information or don't provide a certificate of authenticity, you may have a pot which has had restoration done that you can't tell or you can't see. This is a problem, because the price is reflected in the damage that has been restored. Restoration is expensive to do, but even so it will affect the pots. What is acceptable and not has to do also with age. An early pot signed Marie or Maria-Julian in 1920s to 30s, it can have some scratches, it can have some scuffs, it might even have a little bit of water damage, very, very insignificant, but it can have these things. It will be reflected in the price, but it's not as unusual to see this because the pots weren't as expensive and they've been around a long time. So Maria-Popovi or Maria-Popovi, these pots should be really in very good condition. No pot, or rarely a pot, will be in mint condition, because even when they made them they had little problems and little scuffs and things that could happen in the firing or when they brought them out. Because you have to realize, even in Maria's day, a brand new pot by Maria-Popovi that might bring $25,000 today, at that time was maybe worth anywhere between $150 to $250. So they weren't treated in the same way they were as you would today. So condition is very important. Date is also important. Remember, when you're buying black Maria pottery, always think condition.